So.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Is there?
Thanks for being here. We've got approved this morning, so what I'd like to do, just go around and introduce ourselves. Scott Hensley, the Executive Director of the IDA.
Hi, Collins, Chairman Bird now.
Carol as counsel.
Mike Fitzgerald. Dave Demore. Greg Truckenmiller. Dan Rounds. Ken Adamczyk. Craig Fagan.
John Stead, County Administrative Officer.
Seth Brown, Camper.
All right, thank you. All right, the first action today is to approve the minutes from the June 10th meeting that were emailed around July 1. Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Second by Joe Semyon. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Attached to your agenda is budget report. On the revenue side, just so you know, although it didn't make it to the spreadsheet, we did receive our 2-month payment from Lot Holdings in the amount of $500. That will satisfy August and September for the lease of the Midas building. You see our investment earnings and T-bills and the insured cash sweep. Under the expenditures, the typical executive director salary, we also in the first 6-month payment to the CFO. Continuing with expenditures, payment to Betsy Emery for the IDA website, as well as a partial payment for the website research project that Betsy is undertaking. And lastly, the $250 application fee to the Fast New York grant application that myself and the CRG are preparing. You can see at the very bottom our investments. Questions, comments on the budget report? There are none. So we'd like to make a motion to approve the budget report as presented.
Make the motion. I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Yeah, so have to. Yep.
I'm sorry, were you referring to me?
No, not yet. I just have somebody else in.
Okay.
Under committee reports, the audit committee, Sue Collins reviewed the monthly bank reconciliation report. Do you have any comments on that, Sue? I'm good. Okay. Under our other reports, the county report, we have Mr. Roll here.
Good morning, everybody. Brief report here, most focused on the Route 3038 sewer line. Our committee met last week, full board meet next week, but we don't have any action to approve. This is just an update report that 90% of the sewer line infrastructure is done. Management construction is working in the middle of Mayfield right now. And the sewer line inflow and infiltration removal project in Gloversville is expected to start either this month or in August. Great Saguenay Lake Discovery Center. That report was related. That's
All right. Any questions, comments for Mr. Roll? If none, we'll move to the CRG report and here Dr. Leslie Ford on Zoom.
Thank you. It was a little disconcerting when you all turned my way and I thought I'd missed a cue. Sorry. It's like a little bit like bad theater. So you have the notes here. I just really want to do an overview quickly that, you know, what we are doing very well together is we are working on 5 different areas, you know, support with our micro enterprise grant, 300,000. Again, you can't imagine in little bits of 30 to 50 to 75,000 what that does for local businesses, and the countywide loan pool working again. Development, the Johnstown Commerce Park and what we're working on together there, and our partnership for housing and industry. Then we are repurposing areas, looking at demolition projects and grants, and the Brownfield Act still going forward. influence and network. We're working on the Economic Development Council Project Development Committee for Mohawk area. And we're reaching towards the future with you on workforce development with that grant and trying to understand the very complicated ins and outs of that. So that is the notes you have, and proud to represent the work that we do together.
Okay, questions, comments for Dr. Ford? If none, thank you, Leslie. If none, we'll move on to the chamber report. We have Seth Brown.
So, Mary Beth really hit her ground running. It's been a really smooth transition. A couple of quick things to hit on. We launched a new chamber business support service. The new targeting business support service, which is local businesses scaling up operations, increasing visibility, strengthening their marketing. We've had fewer swing cuttings over the past few months. We've added 3 new chamber ambassadors to banner outreach. We're kind of reworking our membership director position to broaden their responsibilities. So search for that ongoing since Mary Beth previously held that. We launched a new marketing strategy aims to tell kind of like a story business and offer targeted communications and promotions through that. And we're working with Clary Media, and we're going to do a focus magazine on building business in our region. Quick snippet of what's going on.
Okay. Questions, comments for Mr. Brown? I see we have Mary Beth on Zoom. Mary Beth, anything else to add?
Nope, that is it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business. We'll report on the Nexus Renewables project to date. Mr. Parrish, the code enforcement officer for the town of Johnstown, is not present, so I didn't get a chance to speak to him as to whether or not the town had lifted the moratorium yet. Under the T-bills, just one thing to note that our T-bill 4 will expire in August, so we will be renewing that during the August meeting. Continuing on item C, the website research project. Moving along, we have submitted the updated customer development interview list to Betsy Emery. And Betsy has started to make contact with those folks on that list to see who is willing to participate in the interviews for economic development, workforce, housing, and tourism. Continuing on to the City of Johnstown Housing Initiative. The option agreement has been executed. 25 corner development in the IDA. It's not at the last meeting. We'll have some additional discussion on that in the session coming up. Under new business, the Burial Health hiring report. If you recall, in January, we executed our first amendment to the agent and equipment lease agreement concerning job creation that required Burial to submit a series report to the IDA in regards to the number of jobs being created. There were 3 reports due on and before June 30th. The company will have created a total of 68 full-time company employees. On or before December 31 of this year, the company will have created 85. And on or before June 30th, 2026, the company will have created a total of 120 jobs, which was based upon the UTEP agreement, the agreement that the IDA has with Burial for providing incentive. We'll note that on June 30th, and to the day, Burial has supplied this report that's attached to your agenda, that they have created 83 full-time equivalent employees. You can see that as we had requested, we wanted their job titles, dates that they were hired. The location obviously would be the Johnstown, New York plant. Salary range, role profile, and the employee status. Are there any comments, questions on how this report is structured? Or is there any additional information that you would like to see in this report? I think they're in line with salary ranges that they had discussed.
Good update, but they're doing what they said they're going to do.
Okay, yep. Have a new contact area, Liz Shepherd. Correct, Kara?
Yep.
Yep. So she drafted this report. Kara and I met with her and them, say their Shepherd.
No, oh, shoot, what's the attorney's?
Their attorney, via Zoom a couple of weeks back to discuss the job creation reports. And she seemed to be all over it, so if you're okay with that, we will accept that.
Do they indicate like what capacity they're currently at?
Based upon the phone conversation or like Zoom meeting we had with them, they are producing in 50% of the building, correct, Kara? I mean, the space that's been developed so far is 100% capacity being utilized, so. So that's good news. Obviously, they're still waiting on additional power for Tryon, build out the second phase. Okay. All right, moving right along, morning. Item B, the New York State EDC Summer IDA Academy. That will be held on July 29th in downtown Ithaca Conference Center. Time is 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Registration fee is $175. Although they do not have an agenda out yet, I did contact Ryan Silva, who's the executive director of New York State EDC, and he provided me with a list of topics. Obviously, the New York State Controller Office provide the IDA report. The ABO will provide board training. Not really sure what it would be at this moment. There will be a session on the Fast New York Grant Program, a session on the Power Up Grant Program, and a session on housing. I would like to attend that academy. I think it was probably four years ago now, but Dave DeMore and Dr. Chuck Miller and myself attended the IDA Academy. Thought it was worthwhile. I think back then they were really talking about housing, if I recall, and I think there was also solar discussion. So obviously it's open to anyone else on the board that would like to attend as well. So if your schedule allows.
I would highly encourage anybody who hasn't attended to do so. A lot to learn.
That day is open for me, Scott.
It's open.
That day is open for me.
Anyone else?
I'll go.
Have 3 going. Change that to $525. My math is correct. All right, we'll make a motion to authorize $525 registration fees to New York State EDC IDA Academy for myself and 2 board members to attend. Sue? Right now. Second? Mike? Joe is second. Can't hear you here. Sorry. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion carried. Thank you. All right, IDA training this month. I thought we would do something a little different, as we had discussed last month. And we have Mr. Ken Aronchek, who's the Economic Development Specialist at the CRG, here to present an overview of Fulton County's Micro Enterprise Program. And Ken, I will want to do your own slide page here. I just have to share the screen for whoever's on there and so that people can pull. So let me get this set up for you here, Ken, and see if I can figure this out. Do that. Right. I was trying to do it full screen mode. I got to be able to. Is it?
No,
Original?
this is designed and
Is that right? Whatever.
you'll get enough this.
Good.
I don't think so anyway.
Oh.
Maybe this way. It's the point. There we go.
All right, this way, dude.
Nope. Room check with slides down.
Okay, well. It worked yesterday. I can scroll for you.
All right. So basically, the micro enterprise grant, the way it's set up, and there's some confusion out there. Some people think it's a small business grant, business development grant, and it's actually not. It's a low to moderate income job building grant. So the money actually starts at the federal level with HUD, goes down to the state, goes to HCR, the Office of Housing and Community Renewal, and then the municipalities, whether it's the city, town, in this case, the county, goes ahead and puts in the request to get the money. Normally, when they're starting this program, they give you a small amount to see if you can go ahead and actually use it. And how you're gonna use it, because it's a 2-year cycle to get this, to get the grant money out. They allow you 2 years to do that and to make all the jobs and get stuff done. The quicker you do it, the better, of course, but, so that's one of the big things. And small businesses and tourism, and especially like in these rural communities, small businesses are, you know, the lifeblood of who we are, making tax dollars and bringing in revenue and building some of these jobs. So this program, to me and to a lot of people I know to the county, is very important. So across the board, so that's the kind of the breakdown of it. We've been doing this program since 2015. Keep going. One more. So the businesses have to come in, apply, they have to take, part of it is they have to take a training program. Okay, and we have to, the municipality has to be certified, which has become to do the training, and it's become much more difficult. So there's been a lot of municipalities that can't get fired up as quickly as they want to because they're having difficulty getting certified. So the training that we provide, and we've been approved forever now, is business basics and legal. That's where we get Mike Albanese to come in. He talks about building their corporations, doing things like that. We also have the Department of Labor come in and talk about human resources. And then some of the other things we've been adding in that area is we've brought in an HR company. We brought in a finance, like a payroll type of company, just to kind of, not as a sales thing to them, but as a tool to explain to small businesses, hey, look at, you have opportunity here for someone else to do it. Because one of the things that I know I say in class regularly is when it comes to small businesses, they're great at what they do, whether it's running their restaurant and other things like that. But when there's a problem, they spend more time wasted trying to get answers, and then they're not making money. So what I try to do is connect them and give them a old school or Rolodex to go ahead and say, hey, I now have somebody I can call or email to get the answer, and I can continue to do my business. Next one's marketing, advertising, social media, and e-commerce. So we do a night on that. These are 3-hour courses. We do it twice a year, January and June. And it's 4 Mondays, 6 to 9 in the evening. Try to make it as helpful as possible for those businesses to make it. Third one, Phil Beckett teaches for us. It's accounting and finance for small businesses. And we've added in recently when they can make it. And if not, then I do the presentation. Aaron's been coming in to go ahead and remind them that they should be talking to their local planning departments and code and stuff like that, because too many times small businesses think, oh, I'll just rent this building and start working, and it's not approved for that usage. Or you step in and now all of a sudden I don't have an ADA bathroom. So they need, so there's a lot of different things. So we try to get them in there early and get them to know who they are there. And then the last one is building a business plan, because all of these things feed into the business plan for these individuals. And we get Matt Posick from the Small Business Development Center, or the SBDC, which is part of the SBA. They come in for that one and they teach them how to build a business plan. The importance for us in that is, since everything else feeds into that big old business plan, remind them, business plan is great for financing. It's great for grants, but what we try to remind them is it's their outline of what they're supposed to be doing. Because too many times they, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. And then somebody says something that's a friend of theirs or a family member, oh, and they change their mind. Somewhere along the way, they changed the plan. Did it work or didn't it work? So I try to remind them, go back, relook at what you've done and what you're doing to see if you need to change your business plan, or was it a good or bad idea to do that change? Because people aren't doing that. So again, because we're one of the few certified training programs, some of the other municipalities around us have asked for help. And since we're doing it on Zoom, we're more than happy to go ahead and let them just jump right in. Next one. So in our training program, since I started in August of 2019, as you can see, Fulton County, we've trained 267 different small businesses. Montgomery County, which would be Montgomery and the city of Amsterdam, because they both apply. We've done 85 for them. And Greene County, James Hannes, who used to work for us, went down there and took over that position. And so they started to build their own program. And while he was getting his spun up, he asked if he could use ours on Zoom. And so we did another 70 for them. You know, so it's helpful. We just recently had another conversation with 2 other municipalities, and I've been kind of coaching them through the amendment process and building their own program so that they can go ahead and start applying also. Because I just presented this at the EDC conference in May, and a lot of people were like, okay, we need to get some help here. Fulton County is well recognized as one of the top, if not the top user of this program in the state. And I'm not bragging, it's a fact. We help them change some of their forms when they need it. They reach out to us regularly to kind of give us the props because we are very efficient, and knock on wood, our audit process, we've never had a problem at all through any of our audits. So we fly through this thing and they like seeing it because we get it done. So qualifying criteria, you're not going to read all this, don't worry about it. Basically, the business has to have less than 5 people, 5 full-time employees, to make them eligible for the program. Then they have to.
Is that counting the owner?
Yes. Okay. Yep. So then from there, they have to either create a full-time position, 1 full-time equivalent, which could be 2 part-timers, 3 part-timers. If we get into seasonal, I hate that because it's much more difficult to figure it out. You almost have to be a physicist to do that for the state. But it's, the state looks at a full-time employee as 37.5. So their goal is to hire a 1 full-time employee from the grant. There's one way around that, is if the business owner is considered a low to moderate income owner, which means if they are below that level, which many small businesses are, because most of their money is going back into the business, or they're just taking a draw, which means their personal taxes are low anyways, then the owner owning that small business would qualify as the position of hire. So we call it a low to moderate income owner, or an LMCMC. And that's how they get that. Now, what they can use this for, they of course have to do the training program, but what they can use it for is the easier way to do it is what they cannot use it for. Cannot use it for passive investment. We're not going to Turning Stone. They're trying to make more money off of it. They are not allowed to use it for salaries for these employees, and they are not allowed to use it for construction. Because construction would kick in the Davis-Bacon, and would mean prevailing wage, and it would mean they would have to bid out any construction to MWBEs. And with $25,000 or $35,000, the money be gone. So it's not worth that. So that's been eliminated from this program. The grant officially could be $35,000. The way we've kind of structured the county, we do like a $25,000 so that we can help more people. And then the committee meets and decides who's going to get what. But if there's a project that seems that deemed necessary by the committee, they can go up to the $35,000 if the committee decides that's worth, the project is worth it. So that is some of the other stuff that the funds can be used for: capital assets, equipment, marketing, websites, working capital, so inventory for some of these. So there's a lot of different things they can use it for.
Those are things you can use it
You
for?
can use it for.
Okay, I was
Yes.
getting concerned.
Yes.
Because that was a list of all I could do.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Put it on the table and look at it.
yeah, so
Go use it.
next. So, and the committee, so they get this checklist of about 26 different items that they have to have in there. And we go through it personally and we build the thing. I always tell these people in the grant, small businesses, the biggest, I say the grant program and training program, is like, look, don't let this word grant, because it freaks people out, scary. We are doing the grant, you are just doing what we tell you to do. That takes the pressure off of them, because they hear the word grant, and they're like, I don't know how to do a grant, and they start to freeze up and lock up. We don't want that. So that's the first one. Then we give them this checklist, and then they lock up again. And it's like, look it. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I want, when I want it. A lot of this stuff is stuff that we generate after the fact. So we try to make it as easy as possible while still having them have some skin in the game along the process. Because again, it takes them away from, the longer they spend away from making their money, then there's not tax revenue dollars, and they're not making money. So we try to make the process easier. So the Micro Enterprise Grant Committee is comprised of Jack Wilson, which you all know, Kent Kurtz from our board, Dr. Leslie Ford, who's sitting behind this screen, Joe Semio from your board, and Travis Mitchell from EDP. So we will be looking for some new people to come on, because we can expand this as we want to. If anybody's interested, please let us know. We try to make it a well-rounded group of individuals, so it's not just CRG. And if you notice, I don't have anything on there. I'm not on the list. I only present to them and they make the decisions across the board. It keeps it all fair since I deal with every single applicant. So, it kind of makes it an outside look at it. So next, yeah. So over the years, in your package, you'll have a list of all the different people who have been given grants. If you notice, we started out at, 165,000 the first year, got 7 grants out of it, 7 grants the next year. Next one, Scott. And then 9 grants the following year, and then 14 for 283. That's when we jumped up to 300,000. And go ahead. So here's where it also got interesting is we used the ARPA funding from the county. They decided that we were going to go ahead and use ARPA funding in the same manner as we call it the Micro Enterprise CARES Act grant. During that one, we did 38 grants. This program was set aside differently. You could go up to $85,000. And one of the things the county did ask the county supervisors, they said, look, can you put some focus on hospitality, because they like restaurants, bars, other social things that were shut down, like gyms and stuff, that were shut down for an extended amount of time. And then we also try to put a focus on farms, because there's very few funding opportunities for our local farmers. So we did that, and then we just kind of used the same program. So across the board, we went through, and that program, we actually were given $1.75 million for that program. So it was very lucrative. The fun part about this is they authorized us 500,000. We used it so fast. They called us up and they said, okay, tell us what your wish would be and tell us what you could really do. And I said, well, easily we could do another 500,000. I'd like $1 million. They said, okay, we'll give you the 500. And then if there's more money, we'll give you more later. We got rid of that in about 4.5 months. And they called us up because other people weren't using it around the state. Again, I get a call on my cell. They're like, hey, can you use it? Can you get any more money out? I'm like, duh. Yes. They gave us another $500,000. Then as the program was winding down, they had more people giving money back, and they said, I got another 250,000. Can you use it? Of course, yes. So that's how we were lucky enough, but also during that process, doing the program well for so long has given us that reputation where they just call us and say, here, do you want more money? And I'm sure the supervisors have never had a problem with us saying, yes, we'll take more money, with the exception of the amount of paperwork. But at one point in time, over the 1 year during ARPA, I stacked them up on January 1st and I leaned on them for a photo for social media, because it actually came up to here. So, and then we've been continuing through the last grant that just went through. We did 15 grants for 260,000. And since then, we have got our amendment signed and we have another 300,000, which is going to make this 600,000. The way the money breaks down, just so everybody's clear, is there is money from program administration, there's program delivery money, and then there's the grant money. So what happens though, because there's a 2-year window to do this, we're getting it done on average, 300,000 grant in 6 months in the county. So from start to finish, within 6 months, we're pretty much through it and giving everybody awarded their money. That allows us the opportunity to then turn around and take some of the program delivery money that's already functioned out to a percentage of how much they allow for that. We turn it around and turn it back into grants, and that's why you see the numbers changing. So like the 260, there's money in there for doing all the grant writing, pre and all the other stuff, because there are certain things that are not allocated to, you have to do everything after the concurrent when you were approved. So anything that was done, like writing it before, comes out of pocket. So, and then everything after, they can collect from. So what ends up happening is we turn around and we take that money, because we're doing it so quickly, we can't use it. So we turn it back into more grants for other local small businesses. So that's how we end up getting more. The interesting part about this one is we finished the 24 micro in about 8 months, and we haven't touched that money. We're just leaving it because the amendment's in, and then we'll have, at the end, we'll have another meeting and take that funds and reallocate all of those. So there'll be a lot of money reallocated, so we know we'll get some extra grants out of that also. Thanks.
And just a question here.
Yes.
I know the answer, but I think it's a good one. Oh, you have a couple of them businesses there that closed after receiving the fund.
Yes.
Is there any consequences to that, or?
So
Is that what-
there's a system set up where each municipality can say how long what the requirement is. In Fulton County, we've done 5 years for a recapture at 20% less each year. So 80 after the first year, 60, 40. Other municipalities do it differently. I know Green County, they went in and did 2 years, 100,000. So the state, in the program, there is no set number, but there could be a recapture if the county decided to do that. We've had situations in Amsterdam that I've heard of through Nick, our grant writer. The state pretty much, when he brought it to the state, they were like, did they make the job? Yes. Were they open for about 2 years? Yes. They don't worry about it too much. I don't do this, but they look at the situation. And then we go through that. Some of the ones that we've had that went out of business were recent. The older ones that were up there in the past, one, you had a fire, burned the building down. That was an act of God. We brought it up to the states. They said, it's all good. They were open long enough. Don't worry about it. Some of the other ones that were earlier on the list, like Trailside, it was another business before that got a grant early. They made it through their 5 years and then was bought out by somebody else, and then they got a grant and now they're up and running out in Stratford. So we're working on some of these now because they're still popping up. And then we'll run them through the question and answer. But on that, as far as the success goes, I think the next slide will do it for us. So this is the part that I thought was great. So as of the beginning of the year, we've done 105 grants in this program for $5,552.89. So that's a lot of money that's been going back into our small businesses, which is huge. And I try to, it doesn't affect the committee, but it affects my brain and my analysis because we work for the county supervisors. I always try to track where these grants are going to. So I know when I moved up here in 2015, I always heard, Lover's don't get all the money living in Northville. I'm like, well, we only have 1,200 people. Of course, they get more money than we do. But, so I try to track it because all the supervisors that we work for. And so I did this on purpose so people could see who was getting what. And interesting enough, because I needed my brain to understand it even better, I have another slide that's exactly like this. I did a percentage, like what the populations were, and did a percentage of the population, and pretty much percent of population almost matches what we're doing. And it's never been something that we've talked about in a committee meeting, but it just has kind of worked out that way because we're making sure that we do outreach. Because there's not much in Stratford, you know, as far as small businesses go, but they're still getting money. So we're still making sure we do the outreach to those programs. Currently, we have a success rate of, if you take out somebody dying who had 2 small grants, and then you take out the one that burned down, we have like a 97.6% success rate. And the state is way happy with that. Some of the success stories is, you all know Bright Futures, I'm sure, the Montessori daycare, which is up there in the Paul Niagara Center. They started out with just 2 owners and 1 staff member with 3 people back in 16 when they opened up. They are currently at 22 people, and they're expanding again. They're going to open up another facility in Northville. Yeah. So they're trying to get my Rotary money for that. So there was that, and they received a couple grants. So, I mean, they're up to 24 teachers and staff now. And because Fulton County and most of this area is considered a daycare desert, to me, that was a huge victory for us. Next one. The pediatric dentistry, primary teeth, they're located in Gloversville, in between Gloversville and Johnstown. So Jake actually used to work down south. There is not a pediatric dentist within like 2 counties here, pretty much. So very difficult. He wanted to move in here. He built his office. It started with him and 1 staff member. It happened right during COVID, which was a nightmare for him. So we've helped him get started. Since then, he's up to 12 employees in the last 4 years, and they're looking at expanding again and doubling their size because they have so much to in more doctors or more dentists. So you'll see their staff there. They're becoming very large and very well recognized, and they're working in conjunction with Nathan Latour Hospital for referrals for children who need care, so they can do all that. And then if you just look, I mean, Sacandaga Brewery, we helped them get up and running. Back in the day, they immediately got a grant and started off with 19 people, and you know, they're a success story. So the stories that go along with this are really incredible when you're seeing the jobs they're creating and the people they're touching and the businesses that were, you know, are generating tax revenue for here in the county. So any questions?
I got a question.
Sorry, that was long. Yes, sir.
So you were briefly gone through a list of things you can spend the money on.
Yes.
In terms of some of these examples, what are people spending money on when they get the grant?
So I try to have a real conversation with them because they go out and they put a wish list out. I tell them, go build a wish list, because they also have to do a 10% match. So they have to match 10% of whatever we give them. There's another dumb thing, but we'll have a talk about that later. Not the match, but the way they do the match. So they bring the list in, and then that's where I sit down with them. And I have a lot of conversations ahead of time, so that when the committee says, who are these people? We can kind of talk about it. But the way we do that is we'll have a conversation, and I'll look at the list and say, okay, what do you need? You know, like what's real? And some of them, like restaurants, they'll buy equipment. They'll buy, you know, if we just talk like Sage and Cedar, you know, refrigeration, that, you know, a deep jar, a stove, things like that. Those things make really good sense. Marketing makes really good sense, especially if they're a startup or what they are. So there's a lot of different uses. Sometimes it's lease space, which is, we try not to do that not, I mean, if it makes sense, it makes sense for some of the startups, because then they can get built up. So it really depends on where that business is at and what their, where they're at in their life cycle, but also what's going to help them make money. Because sometimes certain people, I had another one, they were gonna add, like a finance company, they were going to add new employees, so they needed computers for them, so they got a small grant of like 10 grand. Well, those computers were valuable in that for them to bring on these other people. So that kind of made sense. So we have those real conversations about what could the money be used for? And then the committee then turns around and looks at when they're going through all of them. Because on average, to get maybe 15 grants, they're going through 25 or 30, low 30s, different businesses. And they're looking at the business plan, they're looking at their finances, they're looking at where they're at, then they're looking at their wish list. And that's where the committee's determining, hey, okay, we're going to give business X. They requested 20, we're going to give them 15 based off of what we think, because you take maybe 3,000 from this one, 5,000 from that one, you now get another grant. Now we're getting up to 15, you know, based off of who they are and where they are. So that's, did it kind of answer your question? It's tough because there's so many. You're going from restaurants to farms to.
It just seems to me it really helps fill the gap when it comes to equipment acquisition,
Yes.
which can be a big upfront cost.
Yes.
And, you know, I faced similar challenges in my own business years ago. I do not believe this program was available back then. Had I known this was available, I would have taken advantage of it. How do you know that they're not spending it on payroll, something else?
So it is, they have to provide us purchase orders, invoices, or paid receipts. So the money has to be out there. Now, an invoice, quotes the state will not accept. So once I get all those, after the committee turns around and says business X has this much, I make a phone call and I say, okay, you have X amount of dollars, you need 10% on top of that. We're gonna sit down, we go over their list, go get me invoices, paid receipts, or purchase orders. And then we work with it. Like some restaurants, they'll go to say, web restaurant, they can get an invoice very quick, like within a minute. They give me that invoice, I send it off to the state in what we call a drawdown. It's a couple of businesses put together, we package it, send it through Scott and then the county. They sign it off, we send it to the state, and then we get money in about 30 to 45 days dropping in the county account, which then has 5 days to drop it into our account. And they go ahead and then I start paying out checks.
I see.
So they have to put their,
Yeah,
that's how they're gonna do it.
gotcha. Okay.
For some of the other ones that are, say, startups that might need a little more help, what we have done is we've done bridge loans. Because that startup restaurant doesn't have that cash flow yet going in where they're at. So, okay, we give them a bridge loan for, you know, a couple months. And then they're only paying interest on that, which is low. And then when the check comes in, they just write us a check and reimburse the loan, pay the loan off, and done, and it works out. So we really try to work with each individual business to see how we can make them grow.
Awesome.
And get them there. Yes, sir.
And just, so is it a one, I know, I think you have a 5 FTE cap. So like, let's say you open a business and you start with a few people, things get up and running, you get a grant to start. A few years down the line, you got that same restaurant that says, you know what, I'm going to do a food truck. And, you know, we need some help doing that. It's going to create another job. Can you come back to the bar again?
So if the business is still under 5 employees, because that's the catch, then they can't. Now, the committee is going to look at who else is in, like, do we have a whole bunch of other new ones? Or this recently did happen. There was a local business that is under 5. They got 1 grant, expanded, got the employee. After that, they turned around, bought the property next to them, built 3 more bays, and are gonna have more employees. The committee was like, this makes sense. They're creating employees that are still under 5. Now, at this point in time, now they're gonna be done because they're gonna be over 5.
Okay.
So, but yes, a business could But again, that's where the committee is gonna look at it and say, do we want to help these other businesses and spread the wealth? Or is it something like that where it makes sense? Because also for that, once those other employees come on, they're done. Right. Because they're gonna be that.
We had one company, one person had 5 companies, and he put 5 business plans, and but we decided, you know, we funded 2 of them and $10,000 each. But the same thing, others were still good. But we said, you know, these other 30 that we have to do, so we said, we can't give this one person 5. And so we tried to be fair and look at areas too, so.
Yeah.
Really proud of
So-
the process.
And in that situation, they had 5 different LLCs.
Yes, we did, so.
And we had a lot of questions come up on that. So. Sorry if that seemed.
No, it's good.
No, thank you.
Really good. If you, and here's the other thing, the great thing is when I first started, we were marketing this program. Now. We're known for the program. So word of mouth gets us, you know, 15, 20, 30 people coming into the class every January and June. That's a big deal. So now it's just rolling. We keep helping more businesses. Good job. So, thank you. No more questions.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. All right, under other business, we have County Administrative Officer John Stead here to discuss Fulton County's Great Sackendog Lake Discovery Center Initiative. Let's bring up the. That's what you got here.
Think our changer works now.
I think it does. I think I figured it out. Let's just check. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry. Just a loose connection or something. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Scott has told me that, I think periodically over the last year or two, he's given snippets and, some information about, Destination Fulton County, our initiative to get the economic development kind of spread out and move, some of the economic development program in Fulton County kind of moved over, for the future, at least into the tourism and recreation sector. And we really thought there was a huge opportunity to do that after COVID. We saw the expansion, we saw people getting more and more interested in upstate New York and so forth. So we launched 3 key projects to try to use the ARPA money, different part of ARPA money than what Ken was talking about, to launch 3 major initiatives. The Route 30 sewer project, which I'm sure Scott's kept you apprised of, headed toward Mayfield, was mentioned earlier today. Sorry, John. Yeah, it's okay. I forgot to share this here. Parkhurst Field Foundation, which for many years have struggled to get their baseball complex. That's still kind of a slow moving animal, I think, right now, but they are making progress. They were kind of stymied and really couldn't get their project moving forward. So the county used some of its ARPA money for a grant to get that stadium built over there, the historic stadium and the replica stadium. So that got off the ground. And then the third project was the Great Sackendog Lake Discovery Center. And we had 3 different criteria we looked at. We thought that we needed something throughout the county. But the goal was, again, and people keep kind of forgetting it, Destination Fulton County. The goal was to try to make us more of a destination. Studies over the years, the chamber actually many years ago, it was a lot of money at the time, $10,000 to do an analysis. It basically said Fulton County is an area where people come in and visit their family and relatives maybe for the afternoon, then they go somewhere else. So the whole idea, and part of this project is part of that effort is to make Fulton County more of a destination, to get people in here for more than one day, stay in hotels, stay in motels, spend their money, and stay for a week or at least a weekend. So today I'm going to go through this really quick though. The update today, display visioning, is really about the mission and the goals, kind of on the creative side of what's the goals of the facility itself, what's it going to look like a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm also here today to ask the IDA to step in and be a partner and help support us in bringing this project to conclusion. And we'll talk about that at the end. Okay. Anybody, is there everybody, is everybody here seen the great documentary, Harnessing Nature, Building the Great Sackendog? Anybody not familiar with it? So this basically, in a nutshell, is an idea to bring that story about how the Great Sackendog Lake, river regulating reservoir, was brought to life, made a reality, a huge, huge, giant undertaking. obviously eminent domain throughout a 30-something mile Sacandaga Valley and so forth. It's basically to bring together at one facility in one location, a tactile, physical experience about the creation of the Sacandaga. I just kind of did this. I superimposed the artist rendering from our architect a few, probably a year ago, onto what the property looked like. Now it's actually, there's quite a bit of excavation done. They've made a lot of progress just in the last couple of weeks in terms of leveling the site and so forth. A 37-acre site just across from the Northville Bridge. I'm hoping everybody knows where this is. But this is just kind of a quick thing I was doing for fun. Part of the plan is to have hiking trails, at least on the up to an overlook of the lake. They're basically, the trails are ready to go. All they would need is signage. We don't really need to do much work there. So this is a quick look. The facility, the goal is to be an interpretive center and a community network, I call it, or an education center as well. It's not really going to be what you call a museum. We used the word museum early on because we needed to talk to local historians and give them an understanding of what were we trying to do. Tell the history, tell a story, but primarily be an economic development engine, frankly, in terms of tourism and recreation. So we won't have a lot of static artifacts. We won't have shovels. You know, here's a pick, there's an axe. It's going to be more of an interactive graphical display type of experience. And we have a real expert, Adirondack Studios, a real neat company who is helping us with the interior exhibits and what's the color schemes and designs. And this company, believe it or not, has done some huge projects. And the one I always like to mention, they actually designed and built the Millennium Falcon at the Star Wars project in Disney World. So it's not a second-class, third-rate type of company. It's really neat that we have them available to us. They're actually in Argyle, New York. Anybody want to know that? It's in the middle of nowhere. It's crazy. In an old factory, an old abandoned factory that they took over years ago. Pretty neat. But they do actually fabrication. They do everything. So we're working with them. So basically a quick snapshot. I'm trying to go fast. I know you guys kind of warming here. Basically, a good portion, half the facility, will be about telling the story. The interpretive center, we've called it the rotunda at different times. That will have all the exhibits that tell the story, and I'm going to give you a flavor of what those the concepts are for those. And then the other half, you'll have a good-sized theater, a boutique theater, I call it, in the middle of the facility. The Harnessing Nature documentary will be able to run there. Any other community event or community videos or presentations, we'll be able to use that theater. Anybody throughout the county, for that matter. Obviously, our goal is to talk about Sacandaga and history and nature and the Adirondacks. It's obviously right at the near Northville, so it's headed out into Hamilton County and right at the start of the larger Adirondacks. And then the left-hand side of the facility is going to be more of an interpretive center or a community network for all the different organizations that we have operating and working in the Sacandaga Valley for Fulton, Saratoga, and Hamilton counties. And we'll talk more about that as we go. But we have areas lined up in the Education or Interpretive Center for all those little groups that work with us. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Real quickly, I'm going to run through what's going to be kind of the concept. There'll be a lot of other smaller displays, but these are the key, marquee, I guess you'd call it, topics and exhibits in the rotunda portion of the building. One of the key things is the 10 hamlets. If anybody knows the story, 10 hamlets that were kind of thriving little villages throughout the Sacandaga when it was just a river throughout that valley. They were all flooded. I call it drowned. I've been told I'm not supposed to use that phrase, but I use it. I just think it's the right word. Basically, those were drowned, and the residents' families and farms, and some of them in their dreams, I guess you might even say, were drowned in this effort and through this eminent domain process. If you watch the documentary, they actually have some old-fashioned clips in there, film clips of people watching their own farms having to be burned down at the end to make room for the lake, obviously. Now, the other half of the story, which is why I think we think this is going to be quite a draw, is it's hard to believe that, my words, the hillbillies and the local folk up in upstate and in this valley had to give up all their property through eminent domain, and the government actually took their property because there was flooding affecting businesses and the wealthy downtowns in Albany and Cohoes. And I mean, that's a simplistic way to look at it. That dichotomy of this story is pretty neat and pretty interesting. and is a draw, probably for the younger generation, especially like the government can take your property. The government can take your property. So there'll be 10 kiosks along that main rotunda. The plan is to have, and I have some outfitting I can just leave on the table at the end. You guys glance at it for finishes and fit. Gives a little better understanding of what the inside of the building may look like. There'll be a large facsimile of the lake built into the floor. And around that will be these 10 kiosks. Each kiosk, the plan is to kind of have a video. The Harnessing Nature actually has these vignette videos, each from each hamlet. So one side at least probably would be that video from the Harnessing Nature. Maybe the other side on that hamlet would be, well, what's the good news? What happened now? Gee, my family, this is a joke, and not me. Somebody may have had the experience where they lost their whole businesses and everything, their family farm. And then now modern day, their children and everything are running a thriving marina. So the recreation on the lakeside may have panned out for some folks. So it's sort of that dichotomy. But maybe the other side will tell the story about what is the lake like today in that hamlet. Some of them are underwater, obviously. This is not exactly a design or anything. It's just making the point. Adirondack Studios will be helping us work through and make sure that the exhibits all have a good theme, good color, and a commonality throughout the facility. They'll be visiting display areas. So if a historian or a local exhibitor wants to come in maybe for the weekend and do special presentations, there will certainly be an area or two for that. There'll be a theater, Harnessing Nature. We have an idea for one of the areas will be probably a little sit-down mini theater where they'll hear all about the engineering side and the marvel that it really was in the 1920s to be able to construct a dam of this size. They actually brought in someone from the federal government who worked very much in World War I in Europe with the Army Corps of Engineers. He actually was hired and brought in to actually design and be involved in engineering the dam. So it'll go through all that various stages, and there's a section of the Harnessing Nature documentary that talks all about that. It may look something like this. This is just kind of a conceptual idea. It's really amazing if anybody can think about how they did this back in those days, literally with pickaxes and small little miniature cranes and they created a false miniature railway with little kind of coal cars and shuttles that went out back and forth to build that. But it was really quite a story to build something like that in those days, impounding a 29-mile lake. Anybody didn't know it? One of the largest amusement parks in the East was right here in near Northville. Is often referred to as Coney Island to the north, but it was Sacandaga Park and Sport Island Amusement Park. Most people think Sport Island is just a little pub and restaurant, but it's named after the island that was there. There was a whole amusement park there with a midway, roller coasters, miniature train, donkey rides, everything you could imagine. And the railroads created that specifically so they would have a destination to bring their customers and a reason for people to ride the trains north. And they brought them up here. They also had theaters, a couple theaters there. They would have presentations. Groucho Marx, Harpo Marx, W.C. Fields performed there. All your vaudevillians in those days. So this was one of the places they would come to and perform, brought there by the railroad. So Coney Island to the north would be a major, major feature exhibit. Kind of more of the fun side of the story. It's kind of neat. I won't go through everything here, but you can see the amusement, the part of the midway on that far corner there with the roller coaster in the background. Another part of the midway down below. Sacandaga Park was also known, believe it or not, as a springs, an area where there was many springs, sort of like Saratoga Springs. I don't think they were sparkling water springs or anything, but there's springs all through the hillsides. There still are, obviously, but that was kind of one of the draws. We even had the Forerunner. I always thought that was kind of cute. The Forerunner of Zoom Flume, where you went down out these large chutes and shot out into the water in the lake. And then they actually had their own grandstand and area where they did performance shows. There's actually photographs with biplanes doing tricks and putting on air shows in front of that grandstand down there. So it was really amazing to think that that existed here in our little area in that time period. The flooding, we expect to have a very major dominant type screen that'll using technology we'll kind of cycle through what was the lake like then? Where were the hamlets? What did it look like? Where were the farms? So forth. Where were the businesses? It will cycle out, automatically cycle, perhaps see it turning into water and, overrunning the hamlets. And then perhaps and then the last scene will be, what do we have today? Where are the marinas? Where are the businesses? Where's the high water line? What does it look like? The railroad years, I mentioned the railroad was completely a central part of the story. The railroad actually filed lawsuits and tried to delay and tried to stop the lake from going through. They obviously were unsuccessful, and the legislature approved formation of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District, and the lake was put in. But the story of the railroads, they all go up through there. There's many different rail stations that were along that rail line in Fulton County. And the gateway to the Adirondacks Visitor Center in Vail Mills roughly was much of the roof line and some of the designs that Steve Smith helped us with a few years ago. You can't see it from this stope, but from the other side, we're actually based on trying to replicate what a Adirondack rail station that actually existed on the edge of Northampton looked like. And it was based after that one right there. But there were actually 3 stations. Just north of the Northville Bridge was actually the turntable. So the end of the railroad was there. The trains would turn around on that turntable where the Northampton Beach is right now, and then head back south. That was the end of the line. Obviously, we're going to have interactive games and things like that to get children and young people interested in the topic while they're at the facility. Maybe something like an interactive map game. We could test you all, but it hasn't been going that good on the exams, so I don't want to hurt people's feelings. But it might be a type of game like this where kids or adults, after they've seen a lot of the exhibits, they try to put where was the hamlet and where was that hamlet before the lake was put in. If they get it in the right spot, it sticks. If they don't get it in the right spot, it bounces back, something like that. It may not be this perfect thing here, but did everybody put the 10 where they go? Did anybody put the 10 where they go?
You get some of them.
Conklinville, I'm not going to do this, but Conklinville, right? Conklinville must be where the dam stop all the water. Munsonville is up in Mayfield, so that's there. But anyway, that's kind of the general theme. I won't go into all that. We could talk about a lot of these things for quite a while. There may be some artifacts, but it is not going to be an artifact-laden facility. If you take donations from temporary donations from people, there's a whole long bureaucracy that goes with that. So we're staying away from that. If somebody wanted to donate something that was really a feature item, we might take that as our own ownership. But we're not going to hold a lot of items as artifacts because of a lot of the problems that creates. One of the main things we need to do is this is tended to be an economic development facility. It is all about getting people into our area and then dispersing them to all the other tourism aspects and tourism locations that we have. For example, and I don't know, this might be a secret, but I just learned that the Quokka Arts Collective has landed a brand new grant, a major grant up there. I won't get into detail, but I just heard about that recently here in the last few days. So Karuga will be someplace where you'll leave this facility and you'll be going through a section that says all the other local historians, museums, all the other locations, the Parkhurst Field project, perhaps, anything else that we can get folks to where they're going to bring economic development and tourism into the area. But Karuga, many of us kind of see it where Karuga, this area in Northville, which has got a very walkable downtown, the oldest 5 and dime store. People will be able to spend a whole afternoon, maybe a day, even in the Northville area along with this facility. And then back to Gloversville and Johnstown is kind of a triangle of tourism development that we're concentrating on. Again, real quick, I'll try to go through, but that's the rotunda side. That's the exhibit side. What we want to also do is have an education center. And it should be a very neat. Some of the things we want to do, there's going to be a dedicated area designed in for the Great Sacandaga Lake Advisory Council to have their exhibits and their information. We hope this to kind of be their headquarters. There'll be a student lab. Some of the local school districts have a trout in the classroom program. Believe it or not, Burlington Perth actually owns 2 pontoon boats. And they have a fishing club, and they actually raise fish. They do water studies. They do a little fishing, I guess, as well. But they actually have a whole program of raising fish, studying the aquatics and the biology of the lake and so forth. And Northville School District has something similar. They actually have a testing and monitoring station right at Northampton Town Beach where they look at water quality. And we hope to have a facility here We will have a student lab in the corner of the building. All the different school districts can get involved in that and maybe be their headquarters for a little laboratory as part of the exhibits. There'll be an area, we went out and talked to a lot of the local historians. They said we don't have good facilities. Often we're working out of our kitchen or our local back tables in a living room. If we could have one area where we could meet and talk about things and have a records area and all collaborate, that would be fantastic. So we've created an area called the Historian Network and other things. So this is the areas, I'll go through real quick. We have the Harnessing Nature Theater. Obviously, I've talked about that. This by itself will be a major part of what you experience when you go there. We obviously have to tell the story of the natural resources habitat, a little bit about the history of the valley before the lake, things like that. But we have a lot of wildlife in that area. Great Saginaw Lake Advisory Council, the FERC settlement agreement that reauthorized the dam and the power generation capabilities of the lake about 20 years ago, 25 years ago now, I guess, authorized the Great Saginaw Lake Advisory Council to be manage the Great Saginaw Lake Enhancement Fund. So there's projects going on. It's gotten quite improved now about the projects they're putting to improve the lake and maintain the lake habitat. And we hope this will be kind of their headquarters. The Fisheries Federation is one of the main entities that does fish stocking and helps develop the fishery that's in the Great Saginaw. And we expect them to have a display, be involved, and basically have changes to that display and be involved with this facility in and out of it for presentations. The student lab, trout in the classroom, I think kind of one of the neatest aspects of it. Out in front of the facility, Hudson River Black River Regulating District has property there. So they actually have a workboat location where they're planning on putting some docks. So this trout in the classroom, basically they could pull pontoon boats up or boats up. Fisheries Federation could do the same thing right out in front of the facility and have a working relationship with the Discovery Center. The Local Historians Network, I described that. A specific office will be there for them. Hudson River Black River Regulating District obviously is a partner. Its mission is the whole entire mission of that agency is to manage and facilitate the Great Saginaw Lake and its impoundment area. Obviously something for administration. These are the last things I threw in here years ago. Kind of the things that you see at some of these type of interpretive centers. There won't be many artifacts at ours, but getting children involved. A few displays, but not a lot of displays and other things that we do. So I want to go through that real quick. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are there any questions. I know we've gotten extended here a little bit probably for meetings, but any questions? A little warm in here. So that's a flavor of the Great Saginaw Discovery Center as it's been designed. Oh, yes.
When is it going to be completed or when's it going to break it down and when finished?
So interestingly enough, we've been staging this out. You guys might not get it, but I'm sure you do. Joking. Adirondack Park Agency had to approve these plans. New York State DEC was involved. New York State DOT was involved, which was actually probably some of the major delays in this project. So when you get through with those folks, you get a more extended schedule. But early this year, the site work was started on that project. So if you went up there now, in fact, they made a lot of progress just in the last couple of weeks. They will be flattening what I call this plateau area. It's a long, I think it's 3,000 to 4,000 feet of road frontage there. And it goes up fairly steep in the back. There's this long plateau. So they are actually leveling that plateau. They've actually started some of the area where the foundation is going to go. So we issued a site construction contract last fall, started in this year, and Miller Excavating is conducting that part of the project. We just finished the bids, opened them about a week ago for 4 more prime contracts. So our goal is to get this completed by the end of 26. So if everything went right and we can award bids here shortly, they would start work soon. Get that going, and then end up. The cash flow projection is that the last payments would be done the end of December of 2026. My guess is it's going to extend a little bit in the beginning of 27. Is my feeling, just knowing how things go and knowing how these type of good size scale construction projects go. So we are, hopefully can stay on schedule. We're a little behind. I'd say we're about 6 to 8 months behind where we thought we were going to be when we started this thing. Funding is an issue. I'm going to talk to you about maybe helping us with that in a minute. So that schedule is a little dependent on the funding because I know you guys are involved in all these big projects. I've been involved with them behind the scenes with every one of them. And escalation, tariff wars, Build America, Buy America. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. All those things are causing these projects to be much more expensive than what you project. So we are right now, we're over the architect's original estimate on what these projects were going to go. And I'm going to ask in my next part of the presentation, I'm actually going to sit down with you folks and ask if you guys could be of help from the IDA perspective. Scott, if you want to throw that next thing up, we'll get into Joe's question. Back in the 1980s, the IDA, along with at that time, the CDA, the forerunner to the Economic Development Corporation and the CIC, was called the CDA at the time. And that organization, I wasn't around in those days, but stepped forward. Everybody got their head together and said, we need to change the trajectory of Fulton County's economy, and economic development has to be a part of this. We got to get serious about it. That's really where our tech parks and industrial parks bore the growth out of. The first one being Crossroads in Gloversville. Most of you are much more familiar probably with the Johnstown industrial park and what's going on there. But there were other efforts along the way. Without the IDA, CDA was very important too. They were the marketer, so to speak. They were the forerunner of our current economic development on the CRG. The IDA stepped in, CDA stepped in, and they created a plan and a way to fund that plan and start making progress on industrial development and manufacturing. And the county and the IDA is super successful with that. Those things have kind of slowed down, and I think, my opinion, is just more the Northeast. You aren't seeing these obviously super giant manufacturing facilities coming into the Northeast right now. We would take one. We had some opportunities for a couple regional business park at the last time. 20-something years ago, that was talked about. They thought Pepsi was going to put a plant there. And so that would have been a huge one. But that's kind of the last one prior to the Johnstown Park being built. That was kind of the last one that was viable. And we've made great strides now. And Tryon obviously was a real challenge. When we decided to do Tryon Technology Park and talk with the IDA, the county was looking at what to do with that thing when they closed it down as a secure detention facility. It was really a quandary as to whether to dive into that and do anything with it. But all we could envision was this ghost town, derelict buildings. Governor Cuomo had painted it as a terrible place for children that have ever been sent and all those things. So we knew it was, the decision was going to be made. But a lot of jobs. It was very important to our community over the many years. Anyway, and relatively good paying jobs too. So at that time, we decided to go to the IDA. Obviously, Jim Mraz was the executive director, and that's somebody who might have been on the board. I think Joe might have been on the board. A lot of you were not. Asked the IDA, will you take on this mission? Will you jump in and basically own and manage that Tryon Tech Park? Because if the county does it, owns real estate, there's a whole lot of complications. The moving property, the advertising it, marketing it, selling it. Sometimes you have to go out to bid for everything you want, every step you want to take. So the IDA was vital as the mechanism. And that's what IDAs were created for. And that's what you guys have been doing for all your existence. So we had originally set down a financial plan based on the architect's design studies and their projections. And we opened bids week before last, your question, and the bids were considerably over what that architect's projections were. We thought they'd be over, but they're considerably over. And again, I think the tariff wars and all the unknowns that contractors go through right now are at least part of the reason. Oh, engineer's not gonna work. Next. Okay. So we'll just have to use next and back. How's that? That's fine for now. So the facility that we're talking about, obviously, I've gone through it all. We hope it's going to be a state-of-the-art facility that will attract folks and be an actual destination It's the whole part of the story. We've got woodland trails, we've got the Corona Arts Collective, which are making huge strides. We seem to have a lot of momentum in this Destination Fulton County initiative that we've launched, and we really obviously want to try to keep it going. This is a key component of that initiative. If we can get the tourism and recreation sector to kind of be an equal partner with manufacturing and retail, we think it's going to make complete sense and make a big difference. And this isn't just, I don't want to belabor it too much. Some folks, I think, are asking the question, wait a minute, within the next year or two, this is about longer term growth and longer term commitment to getting that tourism sector developed. It's not going to happen in 5 or 10 years. We hope to see some of the fruits of this in terms of bringing it here. We're seeing growth, but you're not going to make tons of money in one cycle. It's going to take some time. So one of the problems and challenges that we faced was we're going to use a good portion of our money for this initiative. It was kind of a windfall as far as I'm concerned. None of us thought that the COVID was going to happen. None of us quite understood what the ARPA funds were going to be. But every county and every municipality in the country, if you didn't know that, was given what we call ARPA, I call administrative funds. There were dedicated programs like Ken was talking about. Our Department of Social Services had $1 million or so for social type programs. The Office for Aging had, I think, for maybe 150,000 for this for aid. This was administrative funds, and it was specifically, we met with Senator Schumer in Gloversville at the marketing of the Harvest Co-op. And he said, when you go back, you'd come up with plans and ideas to turn this money into an economic development engine of some sort. And that's what he challenged everybody to do. A few municipalities that actually did it that way. And at least our Association of Counties is saying, wow, you guys actually took it, put it together in a plan and didn't just sort of parcel it out like or member items, here's my favorite this, not do that. We put it together as a plan. We got a little bit of criticism early on. Why don't you hand it out to this? Why don't, people are struggling with, but that would be one time, once and done type effort. Anyway, so one of the key projects, I'll try to close up here and get to some of the data, but the third bullet down is one that has to be stressed. We felt that the Route 30 project, obviously a major infrastructure project, Board of Supervisors have been dedicated to try to figure out how to get that done for the last 10 or 15 years. It's been talked about. That had to be the predominant project, and that was what we called the core project of the three. We originally had 10 projects, but there wasn't enough money to go around for 10 projects. Anyway, right off the bat, we originally, and that's why there was more money set aside for this project at the very beginning from ARPA. The engineers came to us and basically said, the village of Northville, replacing their aged, dilapidated, or obsolete sewage treatment plant has to be part of your system. Under Smart Waters, which is a huge accomplishment for those of you that know what Smart Waters is, that allowed the county to put sewer water and manage sewer water wherever we need it. And you guys, I think, all are working on a project right now. Without Smart Waters, that might never have even been possible. So not even on the radar screen. Now we can do that all over, including this Route 30 project. So the Route 30 project, the Board of Supervisors was absolutely adamant. That's the premier project that has to be funded. You can't build half a line to make it wouldn't. You have to get it done. So early on, that project's estimated cost went up because we had to add a water pump station and facilities to take care of the village of Mayfield. Most people thought, and you might have thought, the village of Mayfield was on its own trajectory to replace their sewage treatment plant and do their own portion of this project. When we really got into it, they hadn't done enough to be part of the project. So we needed the users in the village of Mayfield. There's hundreds of users there. They make the Route 30 Sewer District 5 viable and so forth. So we had to divert basically over $2 million, almost $3 million, to make sure we could take in the village of Mayfield. The project just didn't make sense. It's going to actually improve the biology, improve the ecology and everything else for getting rid of a lot of problems in terms of sewage disposal and everything else. And it's going to help the joint wastewater treatment plant because they're going to have many more customers than they ever did. So that 2.6 million created a gap, so to speak, there. And we've been working in a combination of federal grants, state grants, tobacco settlement reserves from our settlements over the years. We have a Market New York grant that we submitted recently here that we have pretty good optimism that we will receive that in the next 6 months. But we do have a gap based on what we did with the opening. Next, when we opened bids, we opened, and to Joe's question, this is kind of a structuring. There was a site, we've gone through site engineering, architectural design, technical studies, construction, and then building construction contracts. Most of the design, architecture, and all that, that is all funded, and the county has the money set aside and earmarked and appropriated for that. Those have not been anything we're short on. The interior exhibit, design, fabrication, and upfit, a very strategic thing the county finally did. We were one of the last counties to do it, is the hotel motel tax, occupancy tax that was instituted a few years ago. We have been building reserves in that occupancy tax, as well as running the visitors bureau, that Scott's in charge of, which has been a very successful move when we moved to that structure. We've been building reserves as well as funding that entire program out of the occupancy tax reserve. So the entire interior exhibit and all those design, that is eligible to be used, and we do not have a quote unquote budget issue or budget challenge or problem or shortfall there. We are completely confident we'll get that done. Next, now we're getting into the meat of the question. So the technical is what I just mentioned. The original property acquisition, site engineering, architecture, design, our construction administration, technical studies. We actually had to do some extra studies just to prove to the Department of Transportation, if this makes any sense, that taking a piece of property that had 4 entrances and reducing it down to 2 is a good thing. They required us basically to reduce it to 1 entrance. So anyway, geotechnical studies, we had to actually go back and satisfy APA because it wasn't enough to tell them exactly where trees were going to be removed or not removed. We actually had to pinpoint every tree that was going to be removed and what its species was. And so anyway, those kind of studies, all those things, as well as site construction contract number 1 that I mentioned, have all been appropriated, and the funds we have set aside to take care of those portions of the project now. Pending completion. Once we opened bids, we then had a good look at what the actual dollar amounts were going to be, including the escalation, everything that took place. They were about $2.5 million over the 4 contracts, higher than the architect's projection. Hard to open bids. I did the bid openings and open one anyway. Really kind of stressful when you do it that way, knowing that things are escalated that far. So those bids total $5,664,711. We believe we need a project contingency account. There are some contingency allowances built into those contracts, but on the safe side, a little less than 10%, 400,000, we believe would be adequate, along with those allowances inside the contracts. We are going to get NYSERDA and New York Sun rebates on this project. We've got a pretty good estimate right now of about $250,000 because there will be solar panels, and the heating will be geothermal, which I know nothing about. Some of you folks know a lot more. I didn't even know there was such a thing. So it'll be all geothermal heating, which quite a bit of rebates come back on that. The county still has a balance in its 24 and 25 capital project funding committed from county funds of $2,534,000. So we do have a funding gap right now that we need to close, $3,280,711. That will bring the entire project to conclusion, including all the engineering, architecture, and everything has already been contracted for. Again, all the interior exhibits and everything, occupancy tax reserve will clearly handle those. Scott and I have talked about it. I guess I am here to say the Board of Supervisors needs the IDA to step in and help us bring this to conclusion with some funds. The project, over the years, Jim Raz at different times would come to me and say, you know, we took over Tryon, we're selling this, we've made some money in service fees and done this. We'd like to pay the county back. And I would say, wait a minute here. I get it. The IDA wants to do those things, but you're still doing projects there. You're still going to do the next portion of a sewer line. It doesn't make sense to provide us $60,000 of reimbursement for all the expenses the county has put into it, only to 6 months or a year later say, well, now we need $1 million to do the next phase of this. So I'm asking for you folks to take a look. Scott, I think, believes that financially you guys are very stable. You have good reserves. This new project will result in some good holdings and money that the IDA will be taking in through the lot sale, of this water bottling project. And, I am asking if you could take the proceeds that you expect to project, Scott can talk more about that numbers, and dedicate those back to the county so that we can finish destination Fulton County. I believe if we do that, the county can close the rest of that budget gap and get this project in the ground, and we will complete all the components of our destination Fulton County first phase, including this facility. I know it's a big ask, it's a big lift, but that was always kind of the assumption that when money was developed from Tryon, would be available. The county, we did analysis, Scott's overlooked it and helped us complete the analysis. The county put a little over $4.1 million into Tryon with the IDA's partnership to bring Tryon to where it is today, including sewer and water towers and highway. We built a highway in there and so forth. Water lines that are going to allow Niagara, the water bottling plant to move forward and be a project. And so I know it's a big ask, but I think it's a logical ask right now to ask you guys to dive into the tourism and recreation part of our economic development program, not just the manufacturing part. So that's our ask today. I know our chairman of the board is here, Jared Goddard, finance chairman Greg Fagan is behind us. The board of supervisors, with all the things going on at the federal level, the board does not believe it can close this gap by itself right now because of the unknowns of the what's going on between the federal administration, the state administration. New York State is not on the high on the list, favored list of the federal government right now. So many of the things they're doing is going to impact finances and be passed down to the county. But we think this is a reasonable ask. I don't know. I know Greg, we talked about this at length at finance the other day. Jared was there, and our economic development committee has endorsed moving forward with these projects, but we have to work out the financial part and figure out a way to close that gap. Questions, comments?
Could there be bonding for the balance, or is that
That would probably be our last resort.
I guess,
Yeah, it would be our last resort. Part of that discussion, Joe, would probably be, obviously, we don't just do economic development at the county. We've got, let's say, we're just getting into our capital program for next year. So we have a lot of other stresses in terms of projects. So we need to put in a whole new fuel island at our county complex, for example. The correctional facility is now 34 years old, I guess it is. So it's got some renovations and things that have, you can't let the prisoners, get out. So anyway, we have a lot of other projects too. So perhaps the board would take a look. We haven't bonded in 30-something years, and the board is about 28 years. The board is very proud of that. But I think we would have to look at that. Perhaps I don't think the board, put it this way, the board is very serious that if we can't close that gap in a significant way with help, this project is probably not going to go forward. Which I think would be a major, I think would be a major mistake to not get it be empty. But
John, can we just clarify this?
Absolutely.
Are you asking for us to close the $3.2 million gap? Or, because I've heard you hear a couple of things.
Yeah.
The other was, whatever the proceeds are from the current project.
So I think the most realistic ask for me, although you guys have come through on different times, when I say you guys, obviously not the same members of the board necessarily, Dan's fairly real. The idea has come through many different times when we needed to do steps and stages, whether it was FCIDA, power logistics, which was probably more tricky. People wouldn't know that, more tricky than FCIDA when I was involved, in that one, along with the IDA. If there was any way for you to do 3 or 3.2, obviously that would be our best solution. But I think a more realistic ask is the proceeds from Tryon, because there was always an assumption that the proceeds from Tryon, if there were actually windfall, would be dedicated and basically paying back the county for its investments. There's no written agreement requiring the IDA. We never looked at it that way. It's always the IDA. You've heard me many times lecture. The IDA is an arm of county government, different than all other economic development entities in the community. It is an arm of the IDA. It is a county agency created to be a mechanism for our economic development programs and infrastructure. And without the IDA, I don't know where this county's economic development program would be. the way that the IDA was able to be the foundation for all industrial parks and involvement, looking and doing research studies to find new properties for industry. The IDA has been involved in all that, and most people don't understand it. You're sort of the quiet behind the scenes foundation for everything that gets done. And I do. I definitely do. So it is a big ask, but I think it is a big step toward keeping the momentum we have going. I was excited. I was on a phone call with Senator Gillibrand's office yesterday morning, first thing. And that's where I learned that the Kroger Arts Collective was going to get their grant that they put in. And I thought, wow, this is just some momentum that's going on way up in the other end of the county. But if we can keep some of this momentum going, I think we can do it.
A follow-up. So given the timing of, how these things go, we haven't signed anything. We are very, very positive about this project. It could take months before it concludes. How does that fit within the county's?
I'm not the exact expert on the IDA's finances and financial position. My understanding is you guys have pretty healthy reserves. You've got some money, invested. I think a written agreement, a written commitment, we've done in smaller stages over the years, smaller amounts, obviously. A written agreement with a commitment to provide that funding would get this. I would like to be able to continue and get these bids awarded, because if we delay them any longer, if we had to reject and start over, obviously it's going to be more and more expensive, and potentially, the project wouldn't move forward. But if that's something the IDA could commit to, obviously I think that would possibly, again, I think that's for you and Scott, you guys and Scott.
Right. Yeah, I just
along with us to figure out, but
wanted to make sure I was clear on how much you're asking for, when you need it.
Right.
And then,
so I'll chime in here quickly. So based upon my discussion with Adam Winstanley, who has the options on Tryon, obviously, he feels as though closing on the property would occur in March or maybe April next year. And I think the schedule, the county does have obviously a couple $1 million to kickstart this project, that would get us, by the time we award contracts and they get going, would probably get us through the end of the year. And then
so if you had,
that's kind of the thought process.
Move forward.
Actually need the money and the payment, I think it would be 2026.
Okay.
Based on when, based on construction.
Advance.
Let's face it, even when you award a bid, these days, Scott is involved in both sides of this issue. But even these days, it's almost a couple months before you're going to see the contractors doing work. We get contracts in place, they have to sign off, the engineer reviews them, we review them. So this would be an expenditure that we would need in 2026, I think, the money. The 2.5 would certainly get us through the balance of this year. There wouldn't. I have a cash flow analysis from the architect. The predominantly the major brunt of all the expenses will be 2026.
Nice presentation.
Nice
presentation.
Thank you. I hope I don't, like I said, I know it's kind of a heavy lift. Didn't want to surprise the board with this as a surprise, but we're working on a schedule and a timeline of opening these bids, and the bids were delayed a week, so we didn't have as much time before we presented to our finance committee either, because we wanted to make sure we had good bids, and everybody's waiting on steel, and was Canadian steel going to be available, not available? The Build America, Buy America Act is a big impact on construction contracts right now. Huge impact.
You probably said this, but are you hoping to award bids at the 11th on the next meeting?
I think it's July 14th. We would certainly, if we could get a commitment, I believe the Board of Supervisors, we could talk about it the end of this week in Finance Committee and still make that deadline. If not, we would maybe have to have a special board meeting. Special board meetings are complicated because it's hard to get quorum sometimes, get everybody, got 20 members of the Board of Supervisors, get everybody there. Big important project like this, we want the entire board to be there and be able to vote and so forth, but that would be the other alternative. Otherwise, we won't be able to hold the bidders to their bids and so forth. And again, going back out to bid you probably wouldn't get even half the bidders to bid again because they wouldn't think it was credible. Right. And you had to do that, and you get even higher bids, I think. We had quite a, I mean, there was a healthy list of contractors, general contractors that submitted bids, you know. Been doing this for a while, and the FMCC projects, we usually get 2 or 3 general contractors. I think we had 12.
Wow.
As a purchasing agent, this was one of the best, if you could say, bids, not necessarily the dollar amounts. The best representative bids with contractors and top-notch folks that are in that business that I've ever been involved in 30 years. I think we had almost 10 general construction bids. I don't have it with me, but half that on some the other. Not on this project, really. There aren't too many local. Miller is Amsterdam area, so and we had several on that one that were all local. There was quite a few smaller local bidders. I think this project, the building itself, is sophisticated enough that it's the bigger contractors that have done these type of projects that we're bidding. Pardon?
BBL.
Yeah, Bunkoff is the low bidder on the general construction. Hoosick Valley Contractors is a big one that's been involved over the years. Bass Hatfield. I don't have that list with me, but it's all names that you can look at and go, oh, every one of them was. The electrical, the couple, I mean, the other 3 primes, same thing. They were all companies that the county has had bid before and the architect has had experience with all these low bidders. And is very confident in what they can and can't do. So, you know, that part of it went well. It's the cost of it. But we feel in the spread on the bids was very good. So that tells us we got a good realistic number that it should pull off a good project, good construction.
Are they guaranteed maximum price contracts?
They are, but each contract does have a construction allowance built into it that the contractor knows is there. They can't use it. 50,000 on the GC, 25 on the mechanical HVAC, 15,000 on the electrical, and 15,000 on the plumbing. And then the county would have a separate contingency allowance over the whole
So
project.
those contingency allowances are baked in as just that, a specified allowance amount the contractors know is built into their contract.
It's there, but
You
it's
can use, right, you can apply that money as you need to. It's not the contractor's contingency that they carry on their side of the line.
No.
There can be confusion in the GMB project where they say, well, we're carrying a 5% contingency for ourselves, and you assume that's yours to work with, and it's not.
This is specific because it came up in some of the addendums that were being done when I was involved in the addendums from the engineer architect. There are allowances that they should assume are there, but they cannot in any way use them, touch them without specific approval of the owner.
Yeah, okay.
To move forward with those. So I kind of count them as part of, because we don't oftentimes over the year, and I don't know, IDA, as far as I know, we used to kind of just have separate contingency allowance, and that was, that was sort of that amount. So I'm throwing that in, that's another 105, I think it is, on the 400. So now we're pretty close to what you might want as a percentage, I think, for contingency. But, the site work is going very well already. He's a smaller contractor, but that work was pretty straightforward.
I heard you say at the beginning, and I heard Mr. Roll say as well, the ED&E committee endorsed the project.
The ED&E committee has endorsed it. They've been getting briefings on, obviously, right along. We actually went through the same briefing with them a week ago, just to refresh their memories. We have new members. We have a lot of new members. We have 8 new members on the board of supervisors starting last year. I say new, starting last year, but they're new to this. They came in the middle of the initiative. I can leave this. I can't get it away, but oops, my thing fell off of it. This is the so is it FCIDA?
Yeah, oh yeah.
This is the fit and finish drawings or whatever, artist rendering, but a little more detail on what the only one I guess that was really worth looking at, not worth, but they're all worth looking at, but that's kind of a bird's eye view of what the rotunda will look like with the lake in the flooring and so forth. And but it's going to be a major draw type facilities. We're not building, we're not building a rinky-dink pole barn. It's going to be quite a facility with nice finishes and things. And we're going to have to hold the program very tight on contingent use. It's gonna have to be very stringent and strict. The architect does have a person on site every day, so, managing it, so hopefully they'll help us stay tight.
One more question. Is there gonna be an admission to this facility or the donation or?
What I think probably will happen is I believe we're gonna start the facility without an admission. As we develop and as we get to more and more exhibits and a larger displays and make sure we get it perfected, I think we would then turn and try to have an admission fee. Yeah. It'll be interesting because half the facility is going to be a community network with the historians going in and out and so forth. So they will help us. One of the reasons we're doing that is we'll have other experts in there, not just staff. So we don't have to have a large staff to manage the place and operate it. There is a full basement. I should have mentioned that. I didn't put that in. There is a full basement in this building. I wanted it on a slab. All the professionals talked me out of that. And there is a full basement, but we are not finishing out anything on the basement because of the crunch on the budget. Eventually, there has been some interest.
There was an elevator.
There's definitely an elevator, yeah, because it's fairly high ceilings in that basement. The basement is going to be a lot of storage, support area, and resources, but we envision a classroom or usage down there also for community groups and other areas. And we have had, at least tangentially, some interest in an outside organization leasing that to bring revenue into the facility, which that would be kind of a neat function to offset operating expenses. So we don't have any concrete commitments or anything, but it's an open palette down there.
I'm glad to hear that you're not playing chart division, because again, going back to what you said at the beginning about this being a place to funnel visitors to other parts of the county, you want it to be more of a.
It is. We want it to be more of a visitor center, interpretive center, and to be the balancing point with the Adirondack Gateway to the Adirondacks Visitor Center in Vail Mills, so that folks coming. I think we see this as part of a three-prong attack too, from a marketing perspective. You've got the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, which is, millions of dollars of investment. People are swarming in there, I think, at a pretty good pace, pretty popular. The Adirondack, it's now called the Adirondack Experience, which is the Blue Mountain Lake Museum that I was growing up. I could see this being part of the circuit. Either you start here, go to Blue Mountain Lake, Adirondack Experience, understand the history of the Adirondacks. This is, in my opinion, this is man and technology meeting the Adirondacks, right? It's the last major development at the edge of the Adirondacks. Most of the lake is in the Adirondack Park. And then you could go to that experience, finish at the Wild Center, and you've got a week, nice vacation actually in the Adirondacks, or reverse. You go up the thruway, you go to the Wild Center, and you come back around through Blue Mountain Lake, finish back down here, and you hopefully go everywhere. Now, the one thing I didn't mention, and I didn't mention it the other day, but we've been mentioning it everyone. Just about a half a mile over the top of the hill, where the overlook is going to be, is the end of the Lake Placid Northville Trail. The part of this facility on the other side will be a landing zone, I guess it's on the back of what you see here. There will be a patio area and so forth back there. We see that as the point where people will start, hopefully, their trail experience. The Northville end of the Lake Placid Trail right now, totally, in my opinion, totally underutilized compared to the rest of it. And it's because of access. If people can park here, have a map, we'll have a big map explaining where the trail is, how to get to the, news part of it. I think you'll see a tremendous upswing in usage of the Northville, the southern terminus of the trail. Right now, it's a parking area twice the size of this room, and that's where you're parking. You have to go through the highways and everything to get there. This is also going to be the hub and the gateway to the Northville Placid Trail from our end. And so the idea wouldn't be to change the trailhead in Northville, because that's going to stay in Northville, because there's a kiosk there. There's limited parking for folks, but there's a lot of competition with the businesses for parking back there too. So this idea would be as a secondary location, where they could start off or stop from as well. But the trailhead will officially remain in business.
So back
Don't take off. So maybe if I could just finish by saying we had three goals in terms of location of why we were going to put this and where we were going to put it. We looked around the entire county in different ways with Scott, and Jim Moraz and GIS and so forth. Anyway, we thought it needed to be on a major state highway. Whatever, whether if it wasn't here, this is before we even had this property or saw this property or knew anything about it. We thought it should be on a state highway so that you had full accessibility and enough tourist people traveling past it. We felt it should be, if not adjacent, we didn't think it could be on the water because of the expense. We just, and it wasn't actually size parcels that would make sense for parking and everything. But we thought it should be at least, if nothing else, adjacent to the lake, if not on the water. We didn't find anything on the water that was viable. This property seemed to fit that bill. And then thirdly, we felt it needed to be in walking vicinity of a walkable downtown. The only ones we really had, you could probably make a case for Mayfield, maybe, but Northville is much like Old Forge, you know, that type of a walkable downtown where you have Adirondack, arts and crafts, all those things. So you could walk across the Northville Bridge, and this would be a day, almost a full day or half day experience to get people up here and also use Northville. So that's how it ended up at that location. And the neat part that Scott has built upon is the fact that the trail is right there, the Northville Lake Classic Adirondack Trail, and that it just we can see the lake, and we will have the ability to put an overlook, maybe even a fire tower, a small half-size fire tower to actually go up in and actually look out over most of, you can actually see most of the lake from up there. So the hiking trail aspect of it is a major thing. I will leave this fit and finish. It's the only one I have, but I'll leave that and get it back from Scott if anybody wants to flip through that and look at it. But
So you're looking for a motion, Scott?
Carol, I'm gonna leave this up to you as far as how we may do this, but I think it was obviously we want to have this discussion and presentation and open session. You know, I think we all need to come to a consensus that this is a tourism driver, potential tourism driver for the county. Obviously, we've changed our UTEP to reflect tourism. Obvious, you know, so just
It's part of the county
economic development that, you know, there's got to be a consensus of that in the ID board, in my opinion.
From a perspective of meeting ABO and public authority requirements. If this is something you wanted to do, we're gonna have to have some sort of agreement in place with the county. And my recommendation is that if there's a consensus to move forward, that we would then work with the county on what that agreement looks like, because you're prohibited from providing gifts, grants, etc. So we want to avoid any of that. So my comment to Scott was that we should have something in place for the board to consider that's with the county regarding this potential project.
I know the board of supervisors does this. We do it all the time. We take a vote and we direct in our case, the county attorney to develop the appropriate language, you know, for the chairman to sign off on or whatever. I don't know if that's how you guys function or if you'd have to have special meetings or not, but I don't know how that goes, but.
I mean, my recommendation is usually to have the agreement in place, considering we just don't know what the parameters of that are, and, you know, but if the board wanted to move forward, we can certainly do that.
I mean, the IDA has made some smaller donations over the years, but it's nothing like this. So I think this needs to be done, you know, as strong and stringently in writing, the way you guys would see fit.
We could talk about it in executive last week. Okay.
All right.
Center.
I'm gonna leave. Us to leave.
You're saying we're going to stay.
Oh,
That's up to you guys. Not the chairman.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm just old man. That's Joe Gillis. All.
You ready? Okay, so, there's a motion, in your agenda to go into executive session to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such a body, but only when the publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. Then to go into a closed session for attorney-client discussion.
And the first part is about the back quarters.
That's correct. Somebody like to make that motion?
Make the motion.
Joe?
I'll second.
Mike? Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
For the financial stable, I wanted to make sure that.
We're effective at 9:59.
Contractor coming in about.
Okay, so we have discussed Fulton County's initiative to create the Great Sackendogger Lake Discovery Center and their ask for the IDA to contribute dollars to assist in its development. The IDA has agreed that this project is an economic development project to enhance tourism in Fulton County. And you have also agreed to fund the project using proceeds from the sale of property at the Tryon Technology Park. Would somebody like to either draft the motion for that or?
I make a motion that we authorize the IDA's attorney to draw up an agreement with the county contingent upon the sale of property at Tryon
In administration.
and administration fees.
I would second that.
Seconded by Joe Simeon. All in favor, say aye.
Can you amend it to authorize somebody to sign it?
Yes, and authorize the executive director to sign the agreement. Or the chairman. Chairman.
Somebody like to second that amended motion?
Second.
Joe? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right. Well, our next meeting is Tuesday, August 12th, the next regularly scheduled meeting, I should say. Somebody like to make a motion to close at, there you go.
I would like to second the vote.
New air conditioning 27, by Sue. Second by Dan, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Okay, we are.
Thank you, folks. Step in the right direction. We still have a lot of work to do on the